We moved into Maple Crest for peace, not war. I'm Logan Walker, 32, retired Navy SEAL, and recently a first-time dad. My wife, Emma, had just given birth to our daughter, Riley. She was barely 4 weeks old when everything started when she came knocking. Her name was Sandra Whitlock, HOA president, self-proclaimed guardian of community standards, and the last person you'd ever want near a newborn. It was a warm Monday morning. I had just stepped into the kitchen to refill Emma's tea when I heard the knock. Slow, sharp, annoyingly self-important. Emma opened the door, holding Riley in her arms. That's when Sandra made her first mistake. "I've noticed your baby's crying is disturbing the neighborhood peace," she said, smiling with her teeth but not her eyes. "Some of our residents are elderly, and this constant wailing is disruptive." Emma blinked. "Excuse me?" Sandra didn't miss a beat. "Now, I completely understand the stress of being a first-time mother, but if you're not able to maintain a calm environment, we may have to step in. There are resources we can assign to help." "Assign?" Emma repeated, holding Riley closer. Sandra leaned in. "Child services, dear. Sometimes new mothers need a little push to do what's best for their child." That's when I stepped out behind Emma. And that's when Sandra realized she'd made her second mistake. I'm not a big guy in the bodybuilder sense, but SEAL training does something to you. You learn how to read people, how to take in threats without flinching. I didn't say a word. I just stared. Sandra faltered slightly. "You must be the father." "I was just explaining to your wife that." "You threatened to call CPS because our baby cried?" I said, my voice low. "I didn't threaten," she said quickly. "I suggested. There are certain community expectations for noise levels, even from infants." Emma clutched my arm, eyes wide with silent panic. I nodded once. "You'll get nothing but silence from now on, Sandra." She smiled again. "That's all we ask." As she turned to leave, I noticed her glance back, not at me but at the baby. And something in her expression chilled me, like she believed she had power over us. Emma closed the door, shaking. "Logan, what was that?" I held her close. "Nothing we can't handle." But I was wrong. Because the next day, when I came home from the pharmacy, Emma was on the floor. And Riley was gone. The door was open. That was the first thing I noticed when I came back from the pharmacy, just slightly ajar, like someone had left in a hurry. Then I saw Emma. She was on the living room floor, cradling her head with one hand, her breath shallow and shaky. "Emma!" I dropped the bag of medicine and rushed to her side. "What happened?" "Where's Riley?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were locked on the empty crib. Gone. No baby. No blanket. Just an overturned rocking chair and Riley's stuffed rabbit on the floor. "Emma!" I shook her gently. She finally looked at me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sandra, she came in. She said Riley was in danger." I told her to leave. She shoved me. My fists clenched so tight I could feel my nails biting into my palms. My military training taught me to stay calm under fire. But this was a different battlefield. I helped Emma to the couch. She had a small bump on her head, nothing serious, but she was rattled. "I called 911, she whispered. They said someone already reported Riley, said she was in unfit conditions and that CPS had taken her for protection. My blood ran cold. "She forged a report," I said. "She didn't call CPS. She took her." Emma's lip quivered. "She said the HOA had authority, that she was removing a hazard to the community. Logan, she took our baby like she owned her." I stood up and grabbed my go bag from the closet, the one I hadn't touched since leaving active duty. Inside was a burner phone, my old tactical gear, and every skill I'd ever need to track someone down. "I'm going to bring Riley back," I said, voice steady. Emma looked up at me. "You can't go after her." You'll get arrested. I shook my head. Not if I do this right. Cassandra hadn't just crossed a line. She'd made the mistake of dragging a Navy SEAL into a war he didn't ask for. I checked our outdoor cameras. Sandra's car, a white BMW SUV, had been parked outside for no more than 5 minutes. But that was enough. Plate number. Timestamp. Direction. I called in a favor. An old friend from Intel still owed me one. Within minutes, he sent me GPS data from public traffic cams. The SUV had been picked up turning onto Millhouse Road, leading straight toward an abandoned HOA building that had been under renovation for months. I loaded into my truck. Because if Sandra thought she could hide my daughter in a building she controlled, she was about to learn exactly what kind of man she was dealing with. The abandoned HOA building sat at the edge of town, a 2-story concrete shell meant to be a community center but long since forgotten. No lights. No staff. Just plywood boards over most of the windows and weeds tall enough to swallow a car. Perfect place to hide something or someone. Parked a block away. Changed out of my everyday clothes and into something I hadn't worn in a long time. Tactical pants, long sleeves, soft gloves. Nothing flashy. Just quiet, efficient, and ready for anything. Old instincts kicked in. I circled the building from a distance. One security camera, old, dusty, and definitely not working. One SUV out front. Sandra's white BMW. Still warm. She was inside. So was my daughter. I spotted a cracked side door just wide enough to slip through. I checked the corners and entered silent as a shadow. Inside it was musty, full of half-finished drywall, folding chairs, and storage boxes with HOA stickers from years past. And then I heard it. A soft, rhythmic hum. A lullaby. Someone was singing. I crept closer, following the sound to what used to be the building's conference room. The door was slightly open, and through it I saw her, Sandra, sitting in a rocking chair. And in her arms, Riley, wrapped in her blanket, eyes wide open. Not crying, not scared, but confused. Sandra rocked her slowly, whispering, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Mommy's just stressed. You'll be safer with me." My vision went red. But I stayed calm. Bursting in wouldn't help Riley. I needed her safe first. Then I heard something else, footsteps behind me. I turned and saw a man, probably HOA security or some wannabe volunteer. He spotted me and started to reach for a walkie-talkie. Mistake. I had him disarmed and on the ground in 3 seconds flat. Quiet. No noise. I zip-tied his wrists with a cord from my belt and left him behind the water cooler. Now it was just Sandra. I stepped into the doorway. Her humming stopped. She turned slowly and saw me. "Logan," she said, startled. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," I said. "Put her down. Now." She clutched Riley tighter. "I'm protecting her. That woman, your wife, she's unstable." She was shaking. She didn't even know how to hold her. My jaw tightened. "You assaulted my wife. You kidnapped my child. That's not protection. That's a felony." Sandra stood up slowly, still holding Riley. "I'll call the police." I stepped closer, eyes locked on Riley. "Please do. I'd love to explain to them what's on the security cameras at my house." She hesitated. That was my opening. In one move, I stepped forward, gently but firmly took Riley from her arms and backed away. Sandra didn't resist, she just stood there, trembling. "You don't get to decide who's fit to be a parent," I said. "You don't have that kind of power. And after tonight, you never will again." I walked out, Riley in my arms. But Sandra wasn't finished. Because the moment I handed Riley back to Emma, I saw flashing lights outside. The second I stepped back into our home, Emma rushed to me and took Riley from my arms, tears spilling down her face as she clutched her baby like she never wanted to let go. But before I could say a word, we both froze. Red and blue lights flashed through the window. 2 sheriff's cruisers had pulled up outside. A third SUV marked Child Protective Services rolled up moments later. I'd prepared for this. Sandra had clearly made the call the moment I left with Riley. Probably claimed I broke in, assaulted her, and endangered the child. She was playing the victim, trying to twist reality before the truth caught up. Emma clutched Riley. "What do we do?" I kissed her forehead. "Stay calm. We've got this." A firm knock on the door. I opened it slowly, hands visible. The lead deputy stepped forward. "Logan Walker?" "Yes, sir. We received a report of possible child endangerment and abduction. May we come in?" "You may," I said, stepping aside. "But you should also call for your lieutenant. I think he'll want to see the footage I'm about to show you." I led them to my office and pulled up the home security cam footage. Camera 1, Sandra pushing past Emma, forcing the door open. Camera 2, Emma pleading, Sandra grabbing the baby. Camera 3, Sandra leaving with Riley, Emma on the ground. I didn't say a word. Just let the video speak. The deputy stood silent. Then he turned to the CPS officer. "I think we've got the wrong house," he muttered. The CPS woman looked pale. "We were told the baby was in danger." I handed her a folder. Medical records, doctor visits, clean bills of health. Emma's a great mom. She was assaulted, not neglectful. Then I added, and for what it's worth, I'm a former SEAL. I don't take threats to my family lightly. But I handle them legally. Not emotionally. The deputy nodded slowly. "You want press charges?" I didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." She broke in, assaulted my wife, and kidnapped my daughter. He pulled out a pad. "You'll need to file a formal report in the morning, but we'll pick her up tonight for questioning." Emma finally spoke, her voice shaking. "Do you think she'll do it again?" The deputy looked at her and said, "Not after this." And that was when the tide finally turned. The HOA board caught wind of what happened. Sandra's actions made the community Facebook page in less than 12 hours. HOA president arrested for baby snatching? Neighbor goes too far in noise complaint incident. Mother assaulted by HOA, husband was a SEAL. People were furious. The board called an emergency meeting. And by nightfall, Sandra was suspended. But that wasn't the end. Because the HOA made a statement blaming her actions on us. And I wasn't going to let that stand. By the next morning, the internet had done what the law hadn't finished yet. Sandra's mugshot, tired, messy, and red-eyed, was circulating across every local news site. Neighbors who once blindly followed her were now openly asking, "How did she even get this much power?" But just when I thought things might calm down, the HOA posted a public statement. It read, "While we deeply regret the misunderstanding involving Ms. Whitlock, we remind residents that maintaining peace and standards in our neighborhood is everyone's responsibility. In times of emotional distress, we understand that some may overreact, but we encourage compassion toward all parties involved. No apology. No accountability. Just a carefully worded slap in the face." They painted her actions, kidnapping, assault, and filing false reports, as an overreaction. I'd seen this kind of deflection before, in missions overseas, in politics, and people who think titles make them untouchable. But they forgot who they were dealing with. That evening, I went to the HOA meeting. Emma begged me not to go alone, but I had a plan. One that didn't involve shouting. One that would finish this cleanly. I walked into their little clubhouse at 6:55 p.m. sharp. Half the board was there, along with a handful of smug residents whispering in the back. Sandra's seat was empty. I stood in the center, placed a manila folder on the table, and said calmly, "I'd like to make a statement." The president, a nervous man named Bruce who always looked like his tie was too tight, nodded reluctantly. I opened the folder and handed out copies of the police report, surveillance screenshots, medical documents, and legal codes regarding harassment and negligence by homeowners associations. Then I spoke. You didn't just fail to protect a family in your community, you enabled a dangerous woman to believe she had the power to take someone's child. Then you minimized it. Murmurs. You called it an overreaction, I said. But what Sandra did was criminal. And by supporting her with your silence, your HOA is complicit. One board member, a woman with gray streaks in her hair, raised her hand. We didn't authorize her to. You didn't stop her either, I said. Which means you either lack the power to control your president or you chose not to. Then I dropped the bomb. I've spoken to my attorney. And unless this HOA issues a full public apology to my family and agrees to revise its internal structure, I will be filing a civil suit, not just against Sandra but the HOA as a whole. Dead silence. You could hear the air conditioner click. Bruce stammered. Mr. Walker, surely we can resolve this without. I leaned in. No more resolutions. No more warnings. You have 72 hours. And then I walked out. By the next morning, my phone lit up. The HOA had agreed to everything. But Sandra? She wasn't done yet. Because 3 days later, she filed her own lawsuit. 3 days after the HOA caved, a letter arrived. Certified. Thick. Legal. Sandra was suing us. Her claim? Defamation, emotional distress, and loss of standing in the community. She accused us of publicly humiliating her, claimed her arrest was a misunderstanding, and insisted Emma exaggerated what happened. She wanted money. A lot of it. It was insane. Emma looked at me, nervous. Can she actually get away with this? I shook my head. Only if we let her. I called my attorney. Sent him everything. The police report, the 911 audio, camera footage, the CPS documentation, and even the HOA's public apology. He reviewed it all, then laughed on the phone. Let her try, he said. We'll countersue so hard she'll wish she stayed in that concrete HOA building forever. Sandra wanted revenge, not justice. And she was about to get neither. We filed a counterclaim within 24 hours. This time not just for assault and kidnapping but also for false police report, malicious prosecution, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and yes, attempted interference with parental custody. And then my lawyer did something beautiful. He made it public. Local outlets picked it up instantly. Navy SEAL fights back. HOA scandal now faces federal court. Community hero or HOA victim. Court to decide as lawsuits escalate. Public turned against her overnight. Neighbors who once pretended to support her stopped answering her calls. The HOA removed her profile from their website. Her real estate license? Temporarily suspended for pending ethical review. Even the HOA's lawyer distanced themselves from her, issuing a separate statement that they were not affiliated with Sandra Whitlock's personal legal matters. And the final blow? Her own sister, who lived 2 streets over, posted on Facebook. My nephew was nearly taken from his mother over a petty noise complaint. My sister needs serious help. We're not standing by her anymore. Sandra had officially lost everything. Her social circle. Her legal footing. Her reputation. But for me, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about making sure she never tried anything like this again. And that happened when the judge threw out her lawsuit with prejudice, meaning she could never file again on the same claim. And our counterclaim? Still active. She'll face us in court next month. Emma cried when we got the news. Not out of fear. Out of relief. Our daughter was safe. Our home was ours again. The nightmare nearly over. But I still had one thing left to do. Because when the judge dismissed Sandra's case, I made a silent promise to make sure she never stepped foot in this community again. After the court dismissed her lawsuit, Sandra disappeared. No press, no apology, no knock at the door this time. Just silence. But I wasn't convinced she was done. Not yet. Then, early one morning, Emma and I stepped outside for a walk with Riley. The air was calm. The leaves rustled. And there, at the end of the street, a moving truck. Sandra was standing in her driveway, arms folded, watching two men load boxes into the back of a beat-up SUV. No pearls. No clipboard. Just a woman with nothing left to control. She didn't look at us. Not once. But we knew. The HOA hadn't just removed her. They had banned her from holding any future position in the community. Her name? Wiped from every official document.